So, The Church Going. It was published in the year 1954 in the collection of poems by Philip Larkin, and the name of the collection was The Less Deceived. This poem is considered as one of Larkin's masterpieces. It is a 63 lines poem divided into 7 9-line stanzas. Rhyming scheme for each stanza is A B A B C D E C E. Themes are so many themes are there in this poem, like religion and need to worship, and time and death, a serious hunger, the need to worship, superstition, the ceremony of ritual, etc. So let's start by line explanation of the poem Church Going by Philip Larkin. Once I am sure there is nothing going on, I step inside, letting the door thud shut. It means once the poet makes sure that there is nothing going on in the church, he stepped inside and let the door thud shut. That means thud is the sound of the door, that it was closed by the poet. Another church, meeting seats and stone and little books, sprawling of flowers cut for Sunday brownish now. Some brass and stuff up at the holy end, the small neat organ, and a tense, musty, unignorable silence. Brewed God knows how long. Hatless I take off my cycle clips in awkward reverence. So when the poet enters into the church and he stepped inside and he closed the door, he enters into a church and it's like all other churches. There was a deep similarity between all the churches. So it has matting, it has seats, and it has stone, the stone which is worshipped near altar. And there are some little books that are used to pray, and there are some flowers which were cut on Sunday, because on Sunday there are much more events in the churches, but these flowers are brownish now. And there are some instruments or utensils of brass near the holy end. Holy end means the statue of God. And also there is kept an organ. Organ is a musical instrument used at the church, played during hymns. And there is too much silence which is unignorable. That means the poet cannot ignore that silence which is present in the church, and he cannot remove that silence, and it's very strange to him. That silence was very strange to him. Brewed means spreading. That means God knows for how much the silence will spread. That don't know, the poet says that I don't know anything, but the God knows for how much the silence will spread all over. The poet has taken off his hat and started removing the cycle clips from his pant, and he started roaming into the church. Moving on to the next stanza. Move forward, run my hand around the font. From where I stand, the roof looks almost new. That means when he moves forward and runs his hand around the fonts on the walls of the church, from where he can stand, and when he saw the roofs, they were looking new to him. They were cleaned or restored, that he didn't know about they are cleaned or they are restored. But the poet is thinking and questioning that either the roofs are cleaned or maybe they are restored. That is why they are looking new. Cleaned or restored, someone would know. I don't. That whether the roofs are cleaned or restored, I don't know. Maybe someone would be knowing, but I don't know anything about them. Mounting the lectern, I peruse a few hectoring large scale verses and pronounce here endeth much more loudly than I would meant. Someone would be knowing, but I don't. And lectern means small stage where priests go and read hymns. So, on that stage, the poet goes there on that stage and started reading. Those hectoring means large scale verses. Okay, so he started reading. Hectoring means reading large scale verses there on the stage. And after reading them, he said, here it ends. Here endeth means here it ends. And this is the line he said loudly as he can. The echoes snigger briefly. Back at the door, I signed the book, donate an Irish sixpence. Reflect the place was not worth stopping for. And when he shouted that here it endeth, the echo was heard for some time when he said it loudly. And when the poet was going out, he signed a book for which a person comes and goes. So the individual sign there that who comes and who goes into the church. And he donated a coin of Irish sixpence. Irish because the poet is from Ireland. And all these things show that this place was not worth stopping for. The poet feels he is wasting his time here. He will not get anything in return. Moving on to the next stanza. Yet stop I did, in fact I often do, and always end much at a loss like this. So he says, yes, it is the fact that I spend much time in churches and that I usually do, but at last I always feel like to come here is a loss and nothing else. Wondering what to look for, wondering too. That means he starts thinking after coming here. And what he wonders, when churches fall completely out of use, what we shall turn them into. That when the churches would be completely out of use and no one will come here, then what shall we turn them into? What will be their importance at that time? A few cathedrals chronically on show, their parchment plate and pyx in locked cases, and let the rest rent free to rain and sheep. Shall we avoid them as unlucky places? That if the churches, the poet says that what if the churches are out of use or went out of use or the people stop coming here? So what we will do of these churches? If we shall keep them a few cathedrals for showpiece, if we shall keep them a few cathedrals for showpiece, so that we can show what kind of churches were previously. And parchment is what? Bits of paper in church are called parchments. And pyre stands for on which the candles are kept. Sorry, pyx. Pyx is a stand on which the candles are kept. So all these things will be locked by people because they are expensive, like parchment, plates, and pyx. These all things are expensive, and they will be locked by the people in the showcases, and because they are precious and expensive, so they will be kept locked, but the other rest things would be kept for rain and sheep. uh, why is here rain and sheep? They are very these rest of the things beside these parchment plates and picks, these things are expensive, and except these things all the things are cheap and inexpensive. So why did the poet here used rain and sheep? Because when rain will come, when the rain will occur, then people need some kind of roof, so they will come into the churches. And for the cattle grazers, for the cattle feeders, they need a place to feed their cattle or sheep, so they could come to the church to feed them. And I hope that the poet hopes that the poet hopes that this will not be the situation, that we will feel that these churches are unlucky places in the future time. I hope, the poet says that he hopes that we will not think about these churches as they are unlucky places in the future time. Fourth stanza starts with, or after dark will dubious women come to make their children touch a particular stone. The poet questions by that, or after dark will dubious women, a woman who is having many doubts in their heart, so will dubious women come to the church and will say her children to touch a particular stone, because she had faith that after touching the stone her children's fate would get better. Pick simples for a cancer, or on some advised night see walking a dead one. It means, the poet here says about then that, or the people will come here, whether the people will come or the women will come, or dubious women will come to touch the stone by her kids, and or the people will come here for picking simples. Simples are जड़ी बूटियाँ जो औषधियाँ होती हैं, herbs, okay, for the cancer. Or if the people will hear that on a particular night a dead person is seen walking. In a simple way, it means that the church at this time and in the future uh, time will there will be a lot of difference. At this time the church is considered as the home of God, but in future the churches will be considered as home of ghosts. So the he's questioning whether it would be this kind of church or this kind of church. Next line, power of some sort or other will go on in games and riddles seemingly at random, but superstition like belief must die, and what remains when disbelief has gone? Grass, weedy pavement, brambles, buttress sky. So the poet is thinking a lot, saying that he don't know what will happen in future. Maybe people will play games here, riddles, or anything else in churches. The spread of rumors will end one day. Like belief has an end in future, so rumors will also have an end. And what remains when these disbeliefs or rumors will die? So the poet again questions here that when these rumors about the churches will die, what would be the disbelief? क्या बच जाएगा? What would be the remain left there? So he says, grasses, weedy pavements. Weedy pavements are small roads which are full of weeds. Okay. And brambles means the branches of tree which are broken. So he says कि क्या बच जाएगा? What would be the remain? Grasses, weedy pavements, brambles, and sky would be the remaining. No one will repair or restore the churches because in future all people will ignore the churches. There would be no faith, belief. Stanza 5. A shapeless recognizable each week, a purpose more obscure. I wonder who will be the very last to seek this place for what it was. One of the crew that tap and jot and know what rude lofts were. So the poet here says that church shape will change every week because there will be no one to recognize it and it will ruin slowly and slowly. The purpose to care for church will become obscure. Obscure means weird. So the purpose to care for church will become weird. The poet then thinks that who will be the last person, who will be the last individual to visit this church for the same purpose, for the purpose of praying and believing it as it was a holy place. One of the crew means a group, would be knowing about church and would be knowing about rood lofts. Rood lofts are a balcony on the top of rood screen of church. So the poet says that who will be the last individual who will come here for the same purpose of praying and believing as it is a holy place. Maybe there would be a crew of people who will maybe a group of people who would be knowing about this church, and maybe they were knowing about what are rood lofts, what is the use of these rood lofts. Some ruin bibber randy for antique or Christmas edict counting on a whiff of groan and bands and organ pipes and mirror, or will he be my representative? So the poet says, like, and after that the person would be I don't know na, that the poet says that he doesn't know that what kind of person would be coming, who would be the last person to visit there, and maybe he would be not knowing about what are rood lords, what is the use of them, and why are they placed there in the churches. And then the poet wonders by saying that the last person would be coming here in the church would be what kind of person? A ruin bibber. Ruin bibber is a kind of person who is addicted to ruins, a person who is interested in architecture of church. So maybe the person would be a ruin bibber, or a randy means broker who wants to get something antique, or any Christmas addict, a person who is addicted to Christmas, that what kind of organs are played, pipes or mirror. So the poet is very confused and he wonders by saying all of this that whether the person would be the last who is coming would be a ruin bibber, a randy, or a Christmas addict, or will he be my representative, that will he be one of my kind, he will also visit church in the way I came. Bored, uninformed, knowing the ghostly cell, dispersed yet tending to this cross of ground. Those suburbs scrub because it held unsplit. So long and equably, what sense is found only in separation, marriage, and birth, and death and thoughts of these, for which was built this special cell. For though I have no idea what this accoutred frosty bound is worth, it pleases me to stand in silence here. So the poet in stanza 6 says that who will be the last man, I don't know. Maybe the last man may have got bored or uninformed, or maybe he knows about that ghostly appearance in the church. So he came to the church for confirming about the ghostly appearance. Maybe his intentions were like these only. Maybe he has not come to pray in the church. So the poet wonders all these things and thinks he's a very much dilemma and confusion that what will going to happen, what would be going to happen to the churches, and what kind of people would be coming here or not coming here. But still he will come to this cross of ground through the small lands. Suburb scrub means small lands, and scrub are the short small grasses. So through the small lands he will come to the church, that the last individual would come from the small lands to the church and will see the church that from so much time it is here, but why it haven't got ruined, why is it unsplit, that means why it haven't got ruined till this time, why is it standing now, and why was it made. So the last person who would be coming here, he doesn't know the meaning of churches. Maybe he would be not knowing about the meaning of churches and why it is here, why this kind of building is made here. It means that the person will think, the last person will think in the future that why this church is being made at this place only, why at this place only, church is being made for some special purpose, why this church is made, is this made for separation, is it made for death, birth, or anything else. So all these thoughts were going on his mind, on the mind of poet, and he would be thinking, maybe the person, the last individual who is coming, who will be coming into the church, would be thinking about for which important ceremony this church was made, or from whom, or for whom the special cell was being made, for which priest the special cell was being made. Because the poet says, because he haven't no idea, because he have no idea why this frowsy barn means icy, barn means small room in church for storing things. Okay, there is a small room in church for storing things, so that is called barn. So why this frosty barn, or why this icy barn is made, because the poet doesn't know, because he is also a future man and he doesn't know about all these things. So he's talking about the future, that lot of change will come in the future and the people will not know anything about the use of churches and even about the small things. Then the poet is trying to convey that, in the stanza the poet is trying to convey that the people are not able to remember everything of the church. That is why I am also not remembering what kind of frosty barn is made and why it is made, what's the use of it. I know that the poet says that he knows that he doesn't know the worth of some things, but still, I love to be standing here in silence. So, the poet here shows some spirituality into his mind. Moving on to the next stanza, or the last stanza. A serious house on serious earth it is, in whose blent air all our compulsions meet, and recognized and robbed as destinies. So the poet says that it's a serious place. That means the church is an important place on a serious earth. On the important earth. This church is on a important earth, and it is also an important place in whose, मतलब चर्च की हवाओं में मिक्स्ड एयर है, and while coming here all our desires meet. So we recognize all our desires in church, and when we talk to the priest, and then we find our destiny as the priest tells us the right direction, and that much never can be obsolete. That means that the church who shows our desires, what is our aim in life, After talking to the priest, we get to know our right directions, and we get to know our aim, what is the correct direction and what is the correct aim. They guides us. So he says that this is why this religion or ritual of going church must not be ended. This ritual for going to the church must never be outdated. Obsolete means outdated. Since some will forever be surprising, a hunger in himself to be more serious and gravitating with it to this ground, which he once heard was proper to grow wise in, if only that so many did lie round. So the poet here says that as someone would forever not be knowing about the desires she has, what he feels, what are his desires, what is his destiny. He will have some hunger in himself to fulfill his aim, and he will take his life seriously. And this hunger for completing his aim will gravitate him to come to this ground or to come to this church. If he will have some hunger for his aim to complete his aim, then he will automatically gravitate himself to this church, to that church for which he have heard somewhere at some time. So in the future, if the person have heard somewhere or sometime about the church, what kind of church is it, so the person will come to this church gravitationally. He will come, he will attract himself. Okay, so this place is proper to grow wise in. This church is a proper place to grow some wise in ourselves. And the last person will not think that how many dead people are lying around the church, because they are buried there in the cemetery. So he will not think that how many people are buried around the church or something else. So he will not think about anything. He will focus on his aim only, and he will focus on his desires on only. So the younger generation, whenever will be in need, whenever will be in a situation what to choose from both directions, or she will be serious in the future time, the only place, the only idea which will come to their mind is to go to the church, to have some perfection into them, to have some vice into them, or anything else. So the conclusion of the poem is like that the poet has a conflict in his mind whether we need this church, or what will happen to the church after so many years, or is the church important for us. So this is all for today, guys, and we'll be back with a new video. I hope you like this explanation, and bye bye.